Good morning and welcome to the NCAA Division I Women's Basketball Press Conference featuring the Iowa Hawkeyes, winners from the Albany II Regional. We'll start with an opening statement from Coach and follow with questions from our student athletes. As a reminder, the student athletes will then be dismissed and will head to the mix zone for additional interview opportunities, and we'll open up the floor for questions for Coach. At that time, again, when the student athletes are dismissed, the locker room will be available for media availability at that time. And Coach, if we can open it up for a brief opening statement, and then we'll go to questions for the student athletes.
We are obviously extremely excited to be here. This is everybody's goal, right, at the beginning of the year, to be in the Final Four and have the opportunity to play for a national championship. When we were here last year, nobody thought we'd be here again this year. And we didn't listen to anybody. We just listened to the people in our locker room, in our family, in our circle, and here we are again. So I'm proud of the women and how they kept believing no matter what. Obviously, we have one of the best players in the country on our team, and we're thrilled to have that. But I do not want this to be a game that's promoted as Caitlin versus Paige, and I know it already has been, but I don't want that. I want it to be Iowa versus Yukon, and let these two women do what they do best.
All right, at this time, we'll open up for questions. I'm going to start with Doug, then we'll go to Nancy. Second row.
Doug Feinberg, the Associated Press. Caitlin, what did you learn last year when you were in this Final Four that you can apply to this year, on and off the court?
Yeah, I think being here last year, you're not really prepared for everything that goes on outside of the game. There's so many distractions. There's so many events you have to attend. There's so many obligations that you have to do, and your main focus is to come here, and you're playing in the biggest basketball games of your career. So I think being able to block all that out and really lock in and focus on what your job is and what you're here for, and knowing we're not satisfied. So I think that's the biggest thing, is soak all that in and enjoy it. But at the same time, this is business. We're here to win a basketball game and hopefully win two.
We're going to go to our right, Nancy.
Caitlin. Nancy Armour, USA Today Sports. Kind of piggybacking off what Lisa said, so much of the attention has been on you specifically this year. And you mentioned this over the weekend. When you're gone, what do you want to see and what do you think needs to happen to continue the momentum that women's basketball has seen over the last couple of years?
Yeah, well, I think the parity in our game has certainly helped over the course of the last, 5 years. I think there's always been the blue bloods that have been really good, but I think over the past few Final Fours, you've seen teams that maybe haven't been there in 25, 30 years, and I think that's really good for our game. It attracts new fans. It showcases new players. It showcases new coaches. And I think also the amount of stars we have in our game, especially the young stars we have in our game, I think this freshman class really put on a show this year. They had me watching. They had everybody around the country watching. And I think the beauty is most of them are going to have to stay and play for 4 years. And they're just going to get better and better. Their teams are going to get better and better. And that will also additionally help the parity in our game and attract more people to want to watch. So I think those two things are, the most exciting part about the future of women's college basketball.
We're going to stay to our right with Lindsay. We will come back over to our left after that with James and then Jonathan.
Hi, Caitlin. Over here. Lindsay Schnell, USA Today. To your point about there's all this other stuff going on here, there's a USA Basketball minicamp that you were invited to, but you're busy, so you can't go. Have you talked with anyone from USA Basketball about how you might navigate that going forward? Have you seen, all the players are just walking around here. Has anyone come up and talked to you? Hey, we're ready for you to join whenever you're ready.
Honestly, first of all, I've been lucky enough to play for USA Basketball 3 times on their junior national team, so I know how the system kind of works, and Coach Bluder has coached for them a few times, and anytime you're invited to do anything with USA Basketball, it's a tremendous honor, but obviously, for me, it was like a win-win, I either doing that or doing this, and obviously this is where my focus was, and I wanted to get back to the Final Four with this group, and honestly, I haven't talked to anybody. I have people that do that for me, and I think growing up, your dream is always to be on the national team and play for the national team, and a lot of those players that are, in that pool or selection of who's going to be on the Olympic team are my idols. Those are people I grew up watching and wanting to be like, so I think it's more than anything, it's just a tremendous honor to be invited and be on the same list as a lot of those great players.
We're going to go to our left. Go ahead, James.
For Caitlin and Kate, I'm Jamie Watkins for Cleveland.com. You guys, Caitlin, you just talked about how to continue the momentum that women's basketball has right now. You guys are in it, so it's probably hard to recognize, but how would you guys describe the moment that the sport is having right now?
If we could start with Kate, and then we'll go to Caitlin.
I mean, it's just super cool to be a part of. We're not taking anything for granted when it comes to that. I think it's hard when you're in the moment, like you said, to really recognize and realize what is happening. But, I mean, it shows with our viewership versus LSU, 12.3 million, viewers. That's something super cool, and, that just attracts more fans, and that's a good brand of basketball. LSU is a great team, so are we. So, it's fun whenever we can be a part of this, and obviously having stars like Caitlin and other stars across the country, that attracts more and more people, and it's fun to be in the position that we are and be role models and people that, others can look up to.
Yeah, I think the biggest thing is there's been so many amazing players that have come before us and laid a really solid foundation of what our game has become over maybe the viewership numbers over the course of the last 2 years. But I think as a competitor and being involved in this moment, it's hard for you to wrap your head around. When you step on the court and you're playing for 40 minutes, you're not thinking oh my gosh, there's 10 million plus people watching this game at home. That's just not going through your mind. And obviously once you see those numbers and you see those numbers up against it was only beat out by one regular season college football game. We beat out every NBA game other than the Game 5 of the finals. I think that really puts into perspective where women's basketball is going and the type of excitement around our game. But I think as a competitor and somebody that's so focused on what this team needs to do and playing 2 games a weekend, it's hard for you to wrap your head around.
We're going to go to our right. We'll come back to our left, and then Jonathan, I'll get you next since you grabbed that mic from her. Go ahead.
Christy Winter-Scott, Big Ten Network, and this question is for all three, if we have time for all three. But tactically speaking, Coach Bluder, you were discussing how it's Iowa against Yukon, and if it were a chess match, what would be the checkmate X factor for success for your team?
Actually, can we hold on those? Because we'll open up for questions for Coach after we dismiss the student athletes. So
could I go with Caitlin and Kate on that?
Yeah, I mean, we obviously know that they're a very good team. They're very disciplined in all aspects, and they're obviously very well coached. And so we know they have Paige on their team, and we're not going to score, keep her to 0 points. But I think we're going to change up, different defenses, throw some different things at them, keep them on their toes. But really at this point in the season, it's more about us than who we're going against. And we're just going to continue to focus on things that we've focused on all year and, play Iowa basketball. I think that's the main thing, is executing what we need to do.
I would say the same. I don't think there's just one thing that's you do this, you win the game. I think you have to play a complete basketball game, and I think that's what we've been able to do over the course of the last 2 games, whether it was Colorado or whether it was LSU. We were really good on defense. We started off a little slow in our zone versus LSU, and we played man-to-man the rest of the game and really, battled. I think, going to have to play great half-court defense, going to need to run in transition, going to need to execute our offense in the half-court. So I think it's all those things, and like Kate said, at this point, you scout, you watch film, but at the same time, you got to have a lot of focus on yourself too and executing what you do, and I think that's where a lot of our focus lies.
We're going to go to our left, ladies, gentlemen with the plaid shirt.
All right, Trey Modlin, WOVU 95.9 FM. This is for Caitlin and Kate. Mm-hmm. Talk about the impact that Coach Bluder has had on your careers both on and off the court.
If we could start with Caitlin, then we'll move to Kate.
Yeah, I could sit up here and talk all day about Coach Bluder. I think the biggest thing is for myself is she believed we would be here and be in this moment, and that was the greatest thing for me, going throughout the recruiting process is I wanted to play for a coach that had the same vision that I did, and we were probably about the only 2 people that believed we would be at a Final Four, and now we're at back-to-back Final Fours, and additionally, I think she's one of the best leaders I've been around. She values every single person in her program from top to bottom, whether you're a student trainer or whether you're the associate head coach. You're going to get her same attention, and she's going to value you just the same because everybody's role is important, and that goes for every single player on our team too. We all have an equal voice. We all are valued the same inside our locker room, and I think that speaks for our culture, but also people can tell when we're watching how excited our bench is, how excited the players are on our court. And that starts with your head coach, and I'm just lucky to be coached by her.
Yeah, I want to echo everything Caitlin said, but also something that's super special about Coach Bluder is, she cares about us as people first over basketball players. And she'd be one of the first people I would go to her office and, go with a problem, or, if I needed advice for anything, she'll be the first person to give me great advice and be a shoulder to lean on. And so I appreciate that about her. But I've always wanted to play for Coach Bluder ever since I was really young, and it's been a dream come true because, she's the best. And I'm very grateful that I've had the opportunity to play for her for 6 years.
We're going to stay to our left, Jonathan.
Jonathan Tannenwald of the Philadelphia Inquirer. This is a question for Caitlin. You played against Paige and Yukon, if my memory is right, in 2021 in the tournament. It was very different circumstances in a whole lot of ways, obviously off the court with the pandemic and everything. But what are your memories of playing against her, and how different do you think this moment's going to be? I know your coach doesn't want it to be about Paige against Caitlin, but this moment is so big. What do you think it's going to be like? Thanks.
Yeah, honestly, that game is super blurry. It feels like forever ago. And I was looking back and I saw just some old footage of that game, and we both look really, really young. So it's cool to see kind of how our careers have evolved, and a lot of different players on both teams. But I don't know. I mean, like Coach said, it's not Paige versus Caitlin, and it takes the entire team to win a basketball game, and both of us are going to do everything we can. But I think the coolest thing about Paige is how resilient she is. Obviously, she's kind of been dealt a tough hand, and, that girl only has positive things to say about her teammates and the way she carries herself on and off the court, the way she works hard, and none of that has changed, since I've known her since she was in middle school. She's always worked that same way. She's always had that fire. She's always been a great leader, and, I really honestly couldn't be happier for her in the year that she's had, and the way she's led this team back to the Final Four when they've kind of been dealt a tough hand as a program, and they never made excuses. And to me, I think that's something, you just really admire as a competitor more than anything. So I think it's really cool.
We're going to move up to our front, the young lady with the hat on, and on our right.
Thank you. Hi, I'm Lex with ESPN. Caitlin, why do you wear the number 22, and is there an inspiration behind it?
Yeah, honestly, I'm not a very creative person. I was born on January 22nd, so it's what I went with when I was about 5 years old. So.
All right. We're going to get to you. Go ahead. Do you have the mic yet? Sorry. We'll get to you.
Sorry. Caitlin, Tom Withers, AP. Since we're in Cleveland, and this is where your college career will end, it's also where LeBron's NBA career began. Have you had any interactions with him over the years, and do you plan to play till you're 40 and score 40,000 points?
I mean, that wouldn't be too bad. I wouldn't say no to that. And honestly, I've never talked to LeBron directly, but obviously I've seen he's commented about myself, and I just saw this morning he talked about women's basketball in general and how good the game is and the stars in our game, and he knows what he's talking about. He pays attention. He supports the game. He doesn't just talk about it. He really shows up and supports, and I think that's the coolest thing, one of the greatest players of all time, really helping support and grow women's basketball. That's exactly what we need. So he's somebody I've always idolized. So it's cool to be in Cleveland and play here, a place where his career started, and he was able to do so many amazing things.
We're going to take our final two questions. We'll do the gentleman in the second row, and then we'll get to you, Nate.
Anthony Lima, 92.3 The Fan here in Cleveland. Obviously, you don't need anybody's validation outside of your locker room for what you ladies have been able to accomplish. But piggybacking off what Tom said about LeBron, you had Luka, you've had celebrities coming out of the woodwork, kind of parachuting in and watching your game. Does it feel differently when you have so many people talking about your sport that you live every single day, and now everybody, including our talk shows and around the country, physically and verbally talking about your sport on a daily basis over the last month?
Is this a question for both student athletes?
Sure.
We'll start with Kate.
My bad. Yeah, you go.
We'll move to Caitlin and then go to Kate.
Yeah, I think it's really special. I think it's cool. This is exactly what we wanted for women's basketball, but also I feel like, it could have been a thing a long time ago. There's been so many amazing stars in our game, and there's been so many amazing people to support our game. It's not surprising that everybody's wanting to talk about it right now, but the product has always been there. Maybe it's, on an increased level, and I think that goes back to my first point is, the parity in our game, the stars in our game, the young talent in our game. People are just attracted to that. They love watching the competitive fire. They love, seeing more upsets in the women's tournament. Like, all of that is just attracting more and more people. So absolutely, like, it doesn't get old seeing so many people talk about women's basketball. Like, for me, I think that's the greatest thing, and I know it'll only continue to and grow more.
Any additional, Kate?
No, I don't have
Sounds
anything
good.
to add.
We'll move over to Nate.
Thanks.
Nate Larisha, Westwood 1. Caitlin, congratulations on all the success. I know the job's not finished, but you've done some amazing things, obviously on and off the court. What are you proud of most?
Oh gosh, that's a loaded question. I don't know. I mean, I think I'm most proud of just the way my career's evolved over the course of the last 4 years. I think, coming in here and, I don't know, there wasn't like, people didn't really ever think we would get to the Final Four, and now to be here back-to-back times is amazing. But, at the end of the day, like, people aren't going to remember how many points I scored. People aren't going to remember, people may remember that we were in the Final Four twice, but people aren't going to remember, like, my buzzer-beating shots versus whoever. Like, that's not going to matter to people in the end. I hope they remember, how we made them feel, how we brought joy to their lives, how we gave their families something to scream about on the TV on the weekends. I hope those are the biggest things that people remember. I hope, all the young boys and girls remember the joy that we played with and how we took 10 seconds of our time to sign their autograph, and that inspired them to, be whatever they want to be. I think that goes for, I think I'm speaking for our entire team, and, that's what we're kind of the most proud of, the way we've carried ourselves through this entire process. And I think that's additionally allowed us to have so much success on the court, is just the team and the family that we've built over the past 4 years, and that speaks to the way Coach Bluder has built this program. Like this, there's been a lot of really good Iowa women's basketball players to come before us and give us a foundation to, maybe take another step forward and, take this program to a place it hadn't been to, and, since the 90s. And for me, that's the coolest thing, is I've had so many amazing life opportunities and created so many memories with some of my best friends, and, those are the things that'll last forever. Sorry.
Thank you very much, ladies. Best of luck on Friday. As a reminder to those in the group, Kate and Caitlin will now move to the mix zone for additional media availability, and our locker room is now open. I'll let give everyone a moment, and then we will open up questions for Coach. Nancy, we'll start with you.
Hey, Lisa, Nancy Armour, USA Today Sports. What I asked Caitlin about what she wants to see, the game, the continued growth after she leaves. What do you want to see, and do you have fears? That you guys had 12.3 million the other night. Do you worry that if those numbers go down, that that people will look at that negatively or make a negative judgment about that next year?
I mean, I think, excuse me, my voice is gone. I don't know why. I just woke up this way, but I apologize. I mean, I don't know if we can sustain the numbers we had last Monday night for a whole season, right? I mean, we're at the climax right now. We're at the end of the season. Everybody's watching us right now. So I think that's pretty special. But I do not think that our game is going to go down. I think there's too much great young talent. I think there's unbelievable coaches in this at this level, and I think the world has caught on to what they've been missing. I think our game has been really good for a long time, and I think people just have missed the boat on it. And now we finally have had the exposure, and people have understood, wow, haven't watched women's basketball for a long time. I've missed something. And I don't think they're going to want to miss anymore.
We're going to stay to our right, go to Lindsay, then we will move to our left, and then I'll come back up front.
Lindsay Schnell, USA Today. First, Lisa, I wondered, are you and Jan going to wear matching outfits again? It was a winning strategy last year.
We better check. I don't know. I don't know what she's got planned.
What I really wanted to know was Caitlin's point about, playing with a lot of joy. It occurs to me watching the entire women's tournament this year that that is a word that you can associate with a lot of players. And I wonder, do you think that any of that joy is them being excited that finally so many people are paying attention to this game and people are seeing their talent and their passion, and it's just all coming out? It seems, not to take anything away from the men, different from the men's game.
Yeah, I don't know if it's now that they realize that people are really paying attention, because honestly, when you're playing the game, you don't know that. Like, you're just in the moment. You know, a lot of people wrote to me after last year and said that, man, your team played with such joy. They gave us joy. They gave us hope, you know, getting through a tough situation. I got hundreds of emails and text messages about that. So I do think it's something our team has always played with, and maybe people are just noticing it now. I've always wanted our team to play like that. Like, this is a game. Let's have fun. Let's play for each other. So I don't know if it's now because of the media. I feel like we've always played that way.
We're going to move to our left coach, and Doug, please proceed.
Hey, Coach, Doug Feinberg, the AP. Two-part question. The first one is, with the sold-out crowds you have everywhere, I'm curious as a coach, and you talk about losing your voice, how do you get play calls that people can actually understand on your team, knowing that there's 17,000 screaming fans going on? There's hand signals. How do you actually make sure they know to run what you want them to run?
Yeah, you know, I actually have a really good coach's voice, just not today. I really am very loud in calling those plays out, but I do have hand signals too. And so they, you know, and through time, sometimes they kind of know what you want them to do at this point of the season, but I definitely use hand signals too.
And the second part is just, ask Caitlin, what did you learn last year in the Final Four as a coach? Like, okay, this worked, this didn't, as far as all the outside stuff going on to get your team ready to play tomorrow?
Yeah, I think that's one mistake I made between the two games last year that I've learned to going into this year is there are so many other distractions, and you have to protect your emotional energy. And it's really hard to do when all these people are around you, whether it's parents or people asking you for tickets or this media obligation or that. You can be exhausted by the time the game tips, and especially when you're talking about tomorrow being a 9:30 tip. I mean, right? A lot of us are usually in bed by then, so it's really hard, right? So I'm really cautioning them on that. I'm talking about it more. You've got to protect yourself. You've got to figure out ways to invest in your emotional energy, whatever it is for you. But I'm not having the team be required to go to so many off-site activities as I did last year.
We're going to move to our right coach. Please proceed.
Emma Bachelari, Sports Illustrated. Lisa, you've been with Jan and Jenny for so long. What has it been like to experience the last 2 years kind of as a trio, and just what does it do for you as a coaching staff to have that core know each other so well?
Yeah, I think it's made it more special to share it with these guys just because we've been through so much together. You know, one year my husband and I were celebrating our anniversary, and Dave walks down the office hallway carrying a bunch of flowers, and Jenny yells out, "Hey, I've been with you 25 years, where are mine?" So it's really true. We are like a family. You know, it makes it so much easier to go through the bad times when you have people that you really care about, but it makes it that much more gratifying when you get to go have these good times together.
Coach, I'm going to zigzag again. We're going to move to our left, the gentleman. If you could raise your hand so the mic could get to you. I'll come back up to the front. I see you, James. I see you, Jonathan. I see you as well, and I see you, Cassandra. I'm going to try and fit everyone in as much as I possibly can in the next 5 or so minutes.
Lisa Cameron with The Athletic. I'm curious, as you mentioned, you don't want this to be Paige versus Caitlin, but when you look at UConn, Nika seems to do so much for them. When she stays out of foul trouble, it just seems like it helps Paige so much. When you watch them, how much does she dictate what UConn can do?
She is such a great point guard in that she plays so hard defensively. And I think she'll be guarding Caitlin. And, I mean, she uses her size. She's such a smart basketball player. It does kind of relieve Paige of some of those duties, in my estimation. But, you know, it's like she doesn't really have to force things or create things. She kind of is doing what is there and available for her. And I kind of think Gabby Marshall does that for us. Plays extremely hard defensively, doesn't have to make points to be validated, but we'll take them if they're there.
To our right.
Coach Justine Fernandez, Big Ten Network. This UConn team likes to play up tempo. Iowa likes to play up tempo. How will you look to control the pace of play?
I think both teams feel like they're ready to go. I mean, at this point of year, we've both played a certain pace, a certain style all year long, and I don't think now is the time to really adjust what you do. You just go out and do what you do. And so, we like to play fast, and we'll try to do that again on tomorrow night.
Going to go to Cassandra, and then we'll move to Jonathan, and then to James. I'm going to try and fit all of you guys in. Let's see if we can do it.
Cassandra Negley with Yahoo Sports. You've spoken recently about how Caitlin has really complimented her teammates, and you really think it helps boost their confidence. Have you seen more of that from her this run compared to last year, and how do teammates react to this year versus last year?
I think she's learned that through her Iowa journey on how to be a great leader. And a great leader builds up people around them. And I don't think she knew how to do that when she first came to Iowa, because maybe, she wasn't around as good of people. But then she learned, oh, these people are pretty good. And so now she's learned how she can use her voice to give other people that ability to play freely. And I think she's really learned that through her journey at Iowa.
Jonathan.
Jonathan Tannenwald of the Philadelphia Inquirer. In the past in women's basketball, we might not have seen the mass exodus of journalists that we saw when the players walked out the door, because the coaches were such the dominant figures. And a lot of them still are, obviously, but in this particular moment, the game is very player-centric in terms of the spotlight. And I wonder what you make of that. Thanks.
I think that's the way it should be. I mean, they're the ones out there, doing the hard work. They're the ones out there with the, trying to be mentally focused and doing unbelievable things. When I look at Caitlin and what she does, I mean, it's absolutely amazing, as we all know. Her shots, her passing, her ability to elevate at the highest level on the biggest stage, those are the people we should be paying attention to.
We'll stay to our left.
Lisa, you and Caitlin have both mentioned here that this moment that the game is having could have happened a while ago. The quality's always been there. Maybe just the exposure wasn't. I'm just curious, as someone who's been in the game for a long time, how have you seen the coverage of this game evolve, and how important is that?
Extremely important. I mean, I think we have had, I think people should have been talking about women's basketball for a long time now, and they finally are. And maybe it just took some superstars, like Paige and Angel and Caitlin, in order for everybody else to understand and how good our game was. I think they should have been talking about it for a long time. So I think the media exposure has helped our game tremendously. And I'm glad, hey, I come from the Big Ten, and we were one of the first to have a national network. And I think that kicked everybody else off into doing it as well, all the other Power 5 conferences. So I credit the Big Ten for kind of making that first initiation with a network right away.
Any additional questions for Coach? You have a follow-up, James?
I'm just curious. We know how it is now. What were we missing in the coverage before? What was it like? What would this room have looked like, 20 years ago?
I wasn't here 20 years ago, so I'm not really sure. But I mean, obviously the media attention has grown, the viewership has grown, as it should have been. So I don't really know how to answer that question because I wasn't here.
Coach, we have one final question to our left. If you could raise your hand so she can get the mic to you, please.
Yeah, Andrea Adelson with ESPN. Lisa, I know you don't want it to be about Caitlin and Paige, but I'm just curious, in watching the tape on Paige, you saw her earlier in her career, where she is now, and everything she's gone through to get to this point. Where do you feel like she's grown the most as a player, and then how do you try and defend that?
I've seen Paige play since high school, so I mean, she's a Minnesota girl, went up to her open gyms and such, and so I know her. She doesn't know me, but I know her obviously and her game. What's always impressed me is her ability to, stop on a dime and elevate with her shot, and she's already got such great size. But I would say, like Caitlin, she's grown in her team aspect. Just having really good players around them and relying on those other really great players and not having to do everything yourself. Like she had a good high school team, but right? I mean, now she's got great players all around her, and so she's been able to incorporate. I mean, in the last 5 games, she's averaging almost 5 assists a game. So she's giving up the ball as well as her scoring has increased. So I think just, her ability to play alongside other people is what probably has changed the most.
I want to thank you for your time today, Coach, and best of luck on Friday.
Thank you.